from the Mercy One studio. Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Stanley Ashes, a seminarian for the diocese, helping out here on the radio. On today's show, we're visiting with Jonathan Whitfield, senior pastor of Corinthian Baptist Church in Des Moines, to talk about race relations and how we can come together to support each other during these trying times. But before we visit with our guest, Bishop Joensen, what's on your mind?
Well, Stanley, you're getting in your groove here. Well done on that.
Thank you very much.
And you've got the current ordinary of the Diocese of Des Moines named, so that's good too.
Yeah, baby steps.
Yeah, but we had our little prayer vigil. Jessica Hernandez and Justin White, Evangelization, Catechesis, and Hispanic Ministry. We had a little prayer vigil against racism, a kind of virtual prayer on this past Wednesday, July 1st, inviting young people of the diocese around to kind of be with us in solidarity electronically. Opportunities that are there that I think the church is mobilizing in various ways, using the new technology. I'm not a digital native like you are, Stanley, but I think that's a way that the Spirit's kind of catapulted us into being ever more open to enlisting, the means here to announce the good news also. Although it probably was very painful for members of the Diocese of Davenport and the Region 9 Hispanic ministers a couple of Fridays ago. I was part of a evangelism Zoom event, kind of like a parish mission online, and I was one of the speakers, Evangelizum, in Español, and so the response of believers in chaotic times was my topic, and I gave them more than a whole loaf, I think.
Yeah.
And they said, even some of those words in Spanish that native speakers are hard to pronounce. Heterorizada. Okay, so we have to do that. But so our Feast of Freedom here in our country and the ways in which we would come together as well. We've been together in the Des Moines Diocese now, our second weekend coming up for Masses together. We're seeing about 30%. Plus or minus, people are being careful, social distancing. I think we're getting some positive response in the requests, the expectation, really, that people would wear masks. But just as with the decision whether not to have masks or to have masks, now the masks and even the decision about asking people to receive on the hand rather than the tongue. It's interesting that our two infectious disease docs who have been counseling us and advising us throughout this, they themselves prefer to receive on the tongue. That would be their normal devotional way to receive Jesus. But they recognize that on the hand is something that adds not absolute guarantee, but additional measure of protection and diminishes to some degree the risk. So I think our charity there, we don't want to allow the one who sows disunity and discord among us to now capitalize on these ways of mask wearing or not mask wearing, and that we would assert our rights. I think we've got to be careful on that, because when we're kind of being a little more strident in that regard, charity sometimes takes a back seat, and I think we have to be very careful, Stan. This isn't a word of counsel to you, but I think it's for all of us in that way that we have to be very conscious of that. So Independence Day weekend, I'm seeing the fireworks trucks out there on the streets, some of the stands that pop up on this time. Do you have any special family customs or other ways you like to celebrate? Special foods?
July 4th, usually some really good pies are made at the Ashes House, and we partake of a feast. Mm-hmm. And the past couple years, we have gotten fireworks and fired some fireworks off because we live out in the country. So
okay,
yeah.
So you didn't burn down the neighbor's barn or
not
anything?
Not yet.
Now, are you an accomplished pie maker or not? Do you know how to roll that crust, or are you?
I've made a few crusts in my time. They don't always turn out perfect. But yeah, I can try my hand.
Do you use lard actually, or do you have the preferred?
Right. Yeah. The secret. My mom's secret is you do 50-50 lard and butter.
Oh,
and that really, you get the
now
best
you're giving
of
away
both
Mom's
worlds.
secret on the air to our Spirit Catholic Radio and Iowa Catholic Radio listeners.
The better pies across the U.S. is always, it's for the common good.
Okay. Raise the pie level. Even though there's no RAGBRAI this year, with the consumption of pies in Iowa goes up dramatically during that week.
That's true. Well, we have to take a quick break, and we'll return with Pastor John Whitfield of Corinthian Baptist in Des Moines You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Spirit Catholic Radio Network and Iowa Catholic Radio.
Hi, this is Father John Ricardo, and I want to thank Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory for underwriting Christ is the Answer. Losing a loved one, as we know, is never easy, and it can leave you feeling lost and even hopeless at times. But Caldwell Parish helps ease that burden by sincerely caring both about your loss and about your faith. Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory is Des Moines' only Catholic-owned and operated funeral home. Their number is 515-276-0551 or online at caldwellparish.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. According to a 2019 Global Food Security Report, more than 820 million people in the world are hungry today. None of us can help all of them. Most of us can help one child. Your gift of $1 a day through Blessman International provides a child in South Africa with a daily hot meal, place of safety, educational experience, and spiritual development. To get started, go to blessmaninternational.org and click Sponsor a Child.
Welcome back. I'm Stanley Ashes, seminarian and summer intern with the Diocese of Des Moines. On today's show, we're visiting with Jonathan Whitfield, senior pastor of Corinthian Baptist Church in Des Moines, to talk about race relations and how we can come together and support each other during these trying times.
Good morning, Pastor Whitfield. Grace and peace to you. It's a blessing to have you with us this morning. And I came to encounter you, meet you for the first time a few weeks ago when we were together at a panel discussion at Mercy One Hospital and things. And I just thought, I was just really taken with your perspective and life story. So you're not a Des Moines native, right? You come to be called to this pastorate. And can you just still say about, a little bit of background, how this all happened, or what, the life path that led you to embrace the ministry and to be called to pastor?
Sure. As well, good morning, Bishop, and good morning to your listening audience, and thank you for inviting me to be with you once again as we talk about ourselves and our community. I am a native of Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I am the son of a pastor. My father pastored almost 60 years in the South Jersey area in the Baptist denomination, and so I'm definitely a product of growing up in church. And the
word was alive in your household.
much. Hard to run away from it, even though I tried.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Yes, yes. So my life tour, if you will, took me into the Air Force, where I ended up serving a total of 32 years. And while I was overseas in Japan, I felt the inspiration of God to go into ministry. I think I was about 23 years old when that came about, and then that eventually helped us to move back towards the East Coast, even my military career, and then gave me the opportunity to get close to Dad and get under some of his tutelage while I was there, and I ended up pastoring for 20 years in a city called Hackensack, New Jersey. Which
is
indeed,
yeah.
Northern New Jersey area, right outside New York City.
Right across the river there.
Yeah. So that was fun and lively. And then
the corporate world's kind of taken over Hackensack a little bit, hasn't it? I mean, kind of.
Say that again.
The corporate world's kind of spread out over there in Hackensack, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And we were blessed to meet a great friend of mine when we were going to school together, named Michael Burton. And Michael Burton was actually the first to come out here to Des Moines from me and him. And he was pastoring Corinthian for a couple of years, and that's how they met me, through my friendship with him. Unfortunately, he passed away after pastoring them for 2 years. And very saddened situation for the church as well as for his family. And following his leaving us, I was contacted and asked to consider, and so we prayed, and the Lord moved, and we ended up here in Des Moines to pastor Corinthian and to share in this great city.
Wow. Yeah, so even through death, God's Spirit and calling come to us, and so I know the Des Moines community is blessed to have you. You're actually, I only realized, in fact, after that panel discussion, our churches where we live are really close, very close. So that, I hope that's part of the basis of maybe building some relationships within the neighborhood as well. Corinthian Baptist, I guess I don't want to stereotype, but I just have great reverence for the Baptist tradition and how much music is instrumental in your worship and your praise of God. What's the impact of COVID on all that? Because we're kind of Catholics already kind of play it close to the vest sometimes when it comes to the music, and now we're we've got justification.
Yeah. Total justification. Look, we have definitely been impacted from that perspective. The large choir scenario has definitely been removed, and we're online with Facebook and other technical advances there, but we're down to soloists now, and so we've minimized any kind of spread with that, and we have not come back into public worship yet, so we're still utilizing the radio and as well as live streaming, the services so that folks can see it. And we also did a nice piece. My media ministry was able to put together a nice creative, almost like a Zoom thing of the praise team. And so it's about 9 individuals who they recorded, I guess, separately somehow, and then put it all together and then kind of put a bunch of blocks there on the screen, and we were able to kind of say, here's the music ministry, even though we have to be social distance. And so that was pretty nice. And got great response from that, from the church audience as well as the community. So
folks can check that out on the Corinthian Baptist Facebook page?
Yes, they can. They go on the Facebook page. And should be on the website as well.
Marvelous. We'll get a little praise on. So the panel discussion was obviously in the wake of all that's unfolded in our country and in our community, and I think you spoke very poignantly about the pain that people have been living through in their daily lives. It's maybe kind of risen to the surface, maybe expressed in protest or other ways. And I guess, could you just speak to that a little bit? What we're seeing in the Des Moines community around the world, and what the import of that from the perspective of people that you've encountered and ministered to over the years.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bishop, we look at this sometimes, I guess, as though this is a new conversation, but in truth, this is a very, very old conversation concerning man's relationship to each other, and even as it's pinpointed here, what it might seem how the African American race is being perceived and what it has experienced. And so I think, and this may be why we see more than just African American people speaking out now, and that is, I think, the pain of race relations across the board has really risen to, it's kind of like a volcano finally erupting, but it's always been some bubbling down there, and it's erupting now, and this protests are just, they're the voices that are speaking to say, in a simple form, I don't think we're being heard, or you're not listening to me, because this is, as I'm repeating, it's an old conversation. It's age old. It's ancient. Biblically in the Bible, it goes back even to the stories of the Hebrews' relations with the Egyptians, and how Pharaoh, dominated them in that scenario. It has the same attitudes, and so we are seeing man, if I could be so bold to say, maybe at his best, to speak against, the unjust feelings, the dehumanizing feelings, the dysfunctional operations that we have between cultures is really speaking out and rising up across the world. And in that view, it's a beautiful thing to see. It doesn't look pretty, but it's beautiful because it is really, if we want to look at it from the biblical perspective, it is really the voice we were supposed to have for God, to speak and to tell the world how God would want us to function with each other. He's never been about one race having supremacy of another. He's never been about mistreatment. He's never been about injustice. It's always been about us caring for each other as though we were literally, and we are literally, brothers and sisters of humanity. And so I think that's what we're getting out of these protests. It's if I'm not being heard at the table, I'm being heard in the streets. If the conversation is not going to be relegated and mitigated for the point of relevance, then we're going to turn up the volume, so to speak, so that you have to hear, you have to listen, and then hopefully you have to do something.
I think that's a beautiful perspective that, that if we just, there could be a mindset that superficially just simply says this is introducing chaos and disorder and it's disruptive, but that with a biblical consciousness and with the mind and heart of Jesus, that we can see the prophetic voice and the Spirit which, groans on behalf of people, cries out on behalf of not only oneself, but of one's neighbor too. And that may on the short term introduce some chaos, but it's God's way of restoring and redeeming situations. But then even that has to be gracefully responded to and drawn into where it's an inviting relationship, inviting community, rather than kind of paralyzing things in that way. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, I think. That racism is present, among us. It's not simply a white phenomenon directed toward blacks, but again, that we would alienate those whom we are to regard as our neighbor. Whether the Good Samaritan parable is to show us that we would cross the street to extend a hand to help people as well. Are you seeing? What are some things that give you hope in the midst of all this? Not only in the, as you say, the bubbling up, but now what might be happening. I think some of us are disturbed, even as we would acknowledge, the need to maybe even look at the symbols that adorn our public spaces in a way. The kind of the tearing down of statues. I mean, a kind of iconoclasm, if you will. But what are things that give you hope in all this?
Great question, Bishop. When I think of the word hope, I'm normally thinking of it from a biblical perspective, which really points us to, what God has promised us and what we look forward to out of those promises. And so part of that promise has always been retribution. It's always been redemption, salvation, that the end would be good for us. And so with that in mind as a foundation for us as Christian believers, we start looking, as you were saying, through the civil disobedience to probably civil restoration. And what I'm seeing, first of all, is I think that some real sincere hearts towards let's get this changed now, or at least let's begin to make the proper changes now. What has even gave me greater hope that in that vein, I'm listening to some conversations by our lawmakers. I've been in a few meetings, even after you and I have had a chance to sit on the panel together with some of the lawmakers of our city, some of the lawmakers of our state, even to include the governor. And the conversations, I feel, are real and heartfelt towards trying to respond properly and not just react. And I always sit there trying to be a voice of the reason to say that reacting is not going to, get us where we want to, because reacting is normally emotional. But a response normally is intellectual, and so we have to sit down and have the intellectual and honest conversations in that process to say what needs to happen. And so some of the conversations I've been in, Bishop, have gone to the place where I use this word of courageous conversations, where not only can they hear the heart of the pain that has been received, but also say, we want to make the steps that are going to have to be courageous to fix the systemic racist system, situational, and make it not just a situational thing, rather, but a permanent and prominent thing, so that we do become equal, if you will, as brothers and sisters in humanity. We do minimize the damages by maximizing the efforts of putting everybody in the place that it should be. Now, I know that's a long journey. It's not tomorrow's, menu, so to speak, but the conversation gives hope, as you gave the question, that our tomorrows can, and hopefully, I want to use the word, should be better.
I guess as you're speaking, and to know that you're part of those conversations, to a varying degree, but as a more established pastor here, gives me hope, because I think, that they would see you as a wisdom figure and a man whose, religious authority doesn't disqualify you, but gives you a place at the table for those conversations, let alone, racial or whatever identities that we're talking about. Respects the whole person in this way. Might we impose upon you to remain with us for a few more minutes after the break?
Not a problem, Bishop.
We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
Hi, this is Father John Ricardo, and I want to thank Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory for underwriting Christ is the Answer. Losing a loved one, as we know, is never easy, and it can leave you feeling lost and even hopeless at times. But Caldwell Parish helps ease that burden by sincerely caring both about your loss and about your faith. Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory is Des Moines' only Catholic-owned and operated funeral home. Their number is 515-276-0551 or online at caldwellparish.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. The coronavirus has impacted lives in Iowa and around the world. This is especially true in rural South Africa, where COVID-19 restrictions have led to vulnerable children being hospitalized due to starvation. To combat this hunger, Blessman International now offers a program called One Child at a Time. You can sponsor a child in South Africa for $1 a day. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. blessmaninternational.org.
Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
Pastor Whitfield, thanks for staying with us here. You're getting, the stipend check doesn't go up for this by staying on with us.
My pleasure, my friend. My pleasure.
An active Christian charity here, so thank you. But, the show airs, Father's Day would have been a couple Sundays ago, and we're on July 3rd, tomorrow, the Feast of Freedom for our country in this way.
Yes.
Could you just, your life experience and perspective, can you speak about, how, as a man who served in the military and that, how, the sense of, serving our country, but the ethic of service and how faith and all these things, are not at odds with the faith that you bring. And then also as a father yourself, I understand 6 children. Is that right? You and your wife?
6 children. Yes, sir.
Wow. What's your message to your children as they were growing up, or even most recently, in terms of what the encouragement or maybe caution that you give them as a father?
Sure. To talk about the military and faith, I think that I was young. I was very young when I went in the military. I was 19. I actually turned 20 in basic training, and I was a young man, still developing my own, I would say, personal stance about the faith, even the faith that had been given to me by my parents. and I can kind of combine this into speaking to young people as well, to let them know that, your development years are just that. And then after that, when you leave, whether it be military or college or trade school, or when you leave in the nest, if so to speak, you start to make your stance on what you have been given in those developmental years. And so for me, Bishop D, I didn't find the military to be in conflict with my faith. I found it to be of great help in me substantiating what my faith was, because the experience that I had, further extended me into becoming a man. It showed me, social concepts that I needed. It gave me disciplines, that I needed. It gave me camaraderie that I needed. Even in the lines of what we talked about today, in short, it helped me to see and respect the differences that we have, realizing that this community of people is what helps us to have communion with one another. And, the community of that military branch was made up of different folks, and we ended up in that same pot, man, and we formed that union that gave around the object that we would defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so the military helped me to even fortify my faith, to say, as a man now, I was given God as a child, but now as a man, I want to fortify my relationship and to honor the nation that I was born in, and honor the country that has rights and liberties for all men, and to honor that perspective that we wanted all men to be free. So definitely being in the military for the United States of America helped, because there was some basis behind our coming together as armed forces that basically said we were fighting for the cause that I think the Bible does help support, and that is the freedom of all men.
That's such a beautifully reflective answer. We aren't going to have time to get to the father question. We'll have to save that for the next time that you're on. But at the end of the panel discussion, I talked about forming relationships and, celebrating together. I hope there's an opportunity that we could worship together as brothers and sisters in Christ, and maybe you'd deliver a message to us. And,
yes.
Maybe if we're outdoors, or we can let our praise loose a little bit with our choirs together. But thank you, Pastor Whitfield, for your time today.
Bishop, this has been great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Pastor Whitfield. This is Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Spirit Catholic Radio Network and Iowa Catholic Radio.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.